Joining me now on the Knicks Film School Podcast, he is a returning guest. He is also an NBA writer, currently writing for Fox Sports as well as potentially Substack. We'll get into that a little bit. But he is probably best known, I don't know, he may disagree with that, for writing one of the very best basketball books that you will ever read. Tanking to the Top, the Philadelphia 76ers, and the most audacious process in the history of professional sports. Yes, you have to read the whole title.
Exactly.
Yaron Weitzman, how are you, my friend?
I think that's what let's say I'm best known for that. I like that. That's good. You know, I'm more of an author than a writer. You know, I'm more refined. So yes.
I hope someday for one person out there to call me refined. If I can find one person to call me refined, I will die a happy man. That's it. And I get to call you refined. There you go. Because you are one of the best in the biz, and for better or worse, you have kind of hitched your horse to this wagon. So
it's pretty funny. It's the whole thing.
Isn't it though?
Like, yeah, like, and I wouldn't say. So you'll laugh. So yesterday I actually had we had an event for my kids' school, like a tennis, golf, fundraiser thing, whatever. And like I was gonna maybe take a slower day, not that I would normally do that, but slower day. And the morning I see that thing and the Harden video, and I'm like, this is literally the one. I don't think there's any other story. Like this is, if you're talking about this lane that I've carved out, like that is it, right? Like that. I don't like that's the bingo. I don't know what the proper term is, right? Like that's the. Yeah. Like, that's it. That's the thing. It could have been any other player, any other team, honestly. And I could say, oh, good. I can check in later. Somehow I've become Sixers nonsense guy, which I guess is pretty fun.
And sure enough, before the end of the day, you being the astute pro that you are, had an article up for Fox Sports, 13 thoughts on the Harden.
Yeah.
I don't know, fiasco, whatever you want to call it. Let's start there. Actually, no, before we even get to that, like just with the Sixers thing, do you feel at this point, like I have to imagine it's like you break up with someone and then after you break up with them, you hear about all like the crazy shit that they're doing. Is that just how you feel at this point with Philly?
So it's a couple of things. One, yeah. So, okay. Yeah. But I haven't fully broken up with them, right? I've kind of
That's
been
true,
we've kind of gotten engaged again, or we got engaged. We broke up and then we got engaged because, I mean, I guess it's a weird thing to admit. Like after the book comes out, and I wrote the book when I was about 30. Like that was for me. I'm not trying to sound egotistical. The book gave me a level of standing in the business that I probably didn't have when I entered before, right? So and that's one of the reasons I did it. And so after the book, like, I started hearing more stuff that I wish I could have added to the book and more context and more people are answering calls. So like my knowledge base of this nonsensical 10 year, how many years now? We in 10, whatever it is now.
Well, it's 10 years since the process of unofficially started in June. Right. And the book came out in what? It was March it was right around the pandemic.
Yeah. Yep. Who could forget that great timing? So I feel like I've become more attached to it and like I know more and I have more thoughts. And so I complain jokingly, but like I write this yesterday, like I have thoughts ready to go. Like it's like I'm dying to share thoughts. I have these thoughts and insights that I think are pretty, valuable, whatever, as much or helpful, useful. I don't know, as much as any of this is any value or use, right? This nonsense. But yeah.
No, so I think it's incredibly valuable because like I was reading through your Harden piece is so spot on because you literally go through like, well, this is Morey's thought process but this is Harden's thought process. And well, but if that's Harden's thought process, then this is like, we're out, like, and you go through step by step and you arrive at the conclusion, which I think all of us are at right now, which is like, nobody knows how the hell this is going to end up because you're not dealing, right? Like you said it in the piece, you're not dealing with a rational actor.
Yeah. And I guess I think that was maybe, which is funny because you think Daryl Morey of anyone would, know James Harden's approach and how he approaches things better than anyone. But I do think that was probably the Sixers' biggest mistake, assuming, I'll back up. I'm sure we'll get into this, but basically the end of it, they thought they had more leverage because Harden needs to play well, right? That's kind of how we got here. They thought they had leverage because Harden is on a contract year. That's the oversimplification. We can go into the more detailed stuff on it, but that's the oversimplification of it. And I just don't know if Harden approaches things that way. That all said, I also don't know what Daryl Morey was supposed to do in this situation. Like, I don't know. It's the whole thing's just a big disaster.
So speaking of disaster, I actually want to go back like even more because I think you focus more on the steps that have been taken in the more recent past, whereas like obviously you know all about Daryl Morey, you know how many steps ahead he thinks. Like, isn't there a part of you that wonders like, well, he knew where like what Harden's contract situation was when he traded for him? Like, was this just a situation? He's like, well, I got to get rid of Ben Simmons anyway. Let me just try to win a championship in the next 2 years type of deal. Like, do you think he foresaw this going this route, or maybe should he have?
Should's a good question. I think this part I've never talked to him about this. And it's actually an interesting question, right? Because I've talked to other people about how like NBA planning is getting almost more NFL-like, where it's like, it's 2-year windows almost. Like, it's kind of silly to plan. And NFL is really year to year almost, right? I'm not an NFL expert, but I believe that's how it works.
You could turn your franchise around, I think, for the fortunes of your franchise around quicker in the NFL, right? Because of like the way the cap works. Like the NBA, it's like you need to land that guy. And even if you land that guy, it takes time after that. So
correct. But I think it's like the idea of like 5-year planning. Like, I don't know if executives have like maybe they do, right? I'd be curious, like on their boards, if they have like things planned out for 5 years. I feel like it's probably closer to a 2-year window, right? Every is how they're looking at things. So to answer your question, like, I think he probably assumed they were going to trade Ben Simmons. In hindsight, it's unfair. Like James Harden, we all thought that was a great trade, right? And James Harden was a guy. I know there's been some of this Halliburton stuff. Like, I don't know. I think at the time everyone would have said take Harden over Halliburton, even if that was an option. And I'm not sure that it was for a team like the Sixers. I think 2 years. I think they just figured we'll get him and try to win a title within 2 years, right? They were pretty good. The interesting one is, to me, is like, did they mess up last year? Did they get a little too cute in not locking Harden? Having him do the opt-out to get PJ Tucker and Daniel House, would you have been better off just like having him? I forget what the contract situation was, but locking him up for 2 or 3 years, so we'd have, let's say, 2 more years now, and not having to worry about Harden on a contract year or any of that stuff. Like, that to me is more kind of an interesting question. Yeah,
it absolutely is. And even like going back a little bit further here, I'm going to put you on the spot. Hope you don't mind.
Sure. Hit me. No, never.
Can you name the 3 players on the Philadelphia 76ers today that were on the roster when your book dropped? 2 are easy.
There are 3. Well, it's going to, when my book came out, you're saying, so was that Embiid and
March 2020.
So Embiid, who's the other easy one I'm forgetting then? I got to think through the roster.
Makes a lot of money.
Makes a lot of money.
A lot of
Tobias. Money. Okay, Tobias.
Tobias.
And Furkan. Is Furkan still on the roster?
Yes.
I nailed it. Yes.
You nailed it. Good job by you.
By the way, it shows how my brain works. I had Furkan before Tobias, so there you go.
Tobias, I was looking at Tobias's basketball reference page today. That dude's been in the league forever. It's
He's probably a good immaculate grid, guy. I bet.
He's a good guy.
We should try that.
But like, so that's when you're like, it's just amazing to me because your book dropped, and obviously you finished working on the book like a little bit before it dropped. But like I know I looked at it when the book came out, and we talked about it at the time of like, it was the culmination of a years long process. And like, these were the fruits of the labor. And now we've gotten to a place where we're even so far afoul of that. Like, I'm sure you get asked this all the time, so I apologize for it. But like, like reflecting back on the continuation of the process, is if you could even call it that anymore. Like, is this where you thought this thing would be at this point? I guess 10 years down the road.
No, obviously no. Like, if they'd be depleted and have just Embiid, no. I mean, I always say, like, not that you're saying this, right? I always say people, when they say the process of failure, I'm like, if you say that, you have to name the 4 GMs who have been in charge, like, since Hinkie or whatever. You know what I mean? The Colangelos, and like, it's not just and I know you're not saying that. It's not just one person and one decision. Like, there's been a bunch of reasons and new people coming in and trying to put their own imprint on things, and that sort of led them down this path. But no, this is not what it. I mean, this is ridiculous. This, like, Embiid obviously there, but I guess, to be fair, listen, I'll back up. I guess, to be fair, like a couple of years ago, it's like, okay, they have Embiid and Harden. Those are 2 top 10 guys. That was always the That was always the goal. And maybe the issue is that they happened to bring Daryl Morey, who was in love with James Harden and thought James Harden was the answer to everything. And it's probably like, I've thought about the past couple of days, like, man, if that's an interesting article to try to like unpack, a long-term thing about like just the nature of that relationship and how it's ebbed and flowed over the years and why it worked and where it broke and all that. Cause that to me, that's almost part of the story here, right? Or a bigger part of the story. It's not just much of the process as much as Daryl Morey and James Harden, and Daryl Morey decided that James Harden was going to be the guy he wanted to hitch his wagon to. And really, interestingly, in terms of, if you think of Daryl Morey as somebody who he matters historically, his legacy, right? He's someone who's going to matter historically in the NBA. He's been around for a long time. We know at the forefront. And and his desire or yearning to hitch his legacy to James Harden is fascinating, and it looks like it could end up backfiring in a pretty strong way.
Yeah, it's man. I don't want to go down a complete and total sidetrack, but like, again, I know you pay attention to NBA history and you are very cognizant of this stuff. Is there a career that is more difficult to reconcile with amongst like great players? Because he is a great player than James Harden. When it's tough. Like it's the cat. I think we're going to see it, but even different. It's like the Iverson Westbrook category, right? I think it's kind of like we're headed in that path where game changing, incredible, and just for whatever reasons or lots of good reasons, it just never. I'm not going to say like it's weird to say never click because again, these are top 75 guys and all time. What does Harden have? One MVP, whatever. Harden has one MVP, and for whatever was the 7-year stretch, he was like finished second, I think 3 times, and like another.
Yeah, and he changed the game. Crazy. And I did this interview with him last, and he's like, "No, I changed the game." I know, and he's right. He did. He changed the game. But man, I also think it's headed down. To me, those are the guys. The Iverson, Westbrook are the comps. I think those are actually pretty. Although, I mean, look, Iverson it was a very unique team, but he did bring a team to the finals. No, for sure.
Russ was in a finals. Harden not so much. Well, listen, it's not the final chapter on his history is not written yet. But just going back to just like the Sixers for a second, like I'm thinking about. Because you brought up like there's the process of a failure. To me, if you draft an MVP and you keep that MVP through, let's say the majority of his prime, we'll get into. Trust me, we're gonna get.
To what? We're talking about Embiid today. I'm shocked.
Why would a Knicks podcaster want to talk about Joel? Who is even Joel Embiid? No, they drafted an MVP, and he's been freaking awesome for them. He's been everything they could, and like. I know you said like the point of the process was to get 2 top 10 guys. And I think that's kind of what Hinkie was that. Well, let me ask you, what do you think Sam Hinkie would have defined as a successful?
That's a great question. I think it was sustain. It was definitely like it was reverse engineered, right? Like through NBA history, who are the top teams? It's always guys who have top 5 players. How do you get those guys? You usually draft them. That changed a little bit toward the end of his, time there with some like in the post
interesting
LeBron Heatles player empowerment stuff, right? It wasn't as much through the draft, but the basic idea was look at all the champions. They all have top 10 guys. Where do you get a top 10 guy? You need a top 3 draft pick. Okay, let's get as many of those as we can get and see what happens, right? Oversimplification, but that's the basic idea. And through that create sustained success and greatness, right? So that was a goal. I'm not gonna say his goal. I think you would appreciate this, and like, I also think part of it is relevancy, right? I don't know if he would say that specifically, but like, as a Knicks fan, you and Knicks fans know this, right? Like, you want your team to matter. It doesn't mean you want your team.
There's nothing fucking worse than. Well, I don't know. They're like not. There were some years in the early aughts where they just didn't matter. They weren't a laughing stock yet, but they just didn't matter, and then they were a laughing stock. Which is worse.
But I always say it's like Sixers fans, like. Yeah, they haven't gotten over the hump, and like, I guess matter within a point. You don't want to be like, I don't know, the Washington Wizards or whoever it is, right? But they don't matter because you fall into that. That's enough, right? Like, but like, why are we all talking about James Harden? Like, if you're a Sixers fan for the past I don't know, 5 years, whatever the calendar is, however, like your team, you're reading, you want to watch those games at night. You want to hear ESPN's talking about your team. You're reading about them. You care. You're fine. Like that's kind of what you want as a fan. Honestly, obviously you want winning, but like it's all nonsense. You want it to be involved and like care about it. And I'm saying this, like, I'm a big, like, I relate to, like, I'm a big Mets fan, right? Like when my summers are better when they matter. This now I'm like, I have nothing to do every night now. You know what I mean? They're worthless. Like, it's just, last summer was a blast.
It won last night.
Honestly, I did not even know. I'm done checking.
I've watched like 3 baseball games all year. I happen to be watching.
That's funny. That's funny. So yeah, so like, I think relevancy on kind of like, the Venn diagram, relevancy and legit contention, and you want both, right? And that's, I think they had that. To be fair, I think they had that.
They absolutely did have that, or
have that. Excuse me, it's current too. We'll see what happens.
I mean, as of today, I like, if you told me the Sixers were somehow going to win the NBA championship next year, I'd believe you. I don't know if I'd want to map out exactly how that would happen, but like, I'm sure there's a path because Joel Embiid's on the team right now.
Yeah, exactly.
Which so we'll start to get into Embiid. Like, so the process started 10 years ago in June. Embiid was drafted the next year. I'm not gonna try to ask you to like see inside his head, but like, you've done just more reporting on this guy than basically anyone. Do you think there is a part of him, and if so, maybe how big of a part of him, that has looked at the totality of the moves that this organization, and as you said, it's not just one GM, it's not even just 2 GMs, it's like multiple GMs, but the organization has made since the day they drafted him, and we don't have to, like, people listening to this pod, they know all the things that have happened and who's gone out the door and like things, talent maybe didn't come back. Like, do you think he's looked around at the totality of this and just been like, what do I really want to stick around to see how this ends?
For sure. I saw once explain it to me that like Embiid, because he'll make a lot of comments about, like, he makes Jimmy Butler comments and hinting at stuff, about off-season moves, right? Someone once joked that like he's like an NBA owner, like he comments about the moves after, not before, right? Which is probably not so. It's smart for him politically. It's kind of annoying to if you're working with him or on the organization, right? Sure. But I bring that up. The point being that, like, no, he's aware, right? And he's taken shots before about decisions, like we mentioned Jimmy Butler, and their continuous online flirtation with each other, right? Even though like that was not saying.
I should say, do you see what he did today? He apparently took.
I saw he did. I saw he did. Right. And when so like, again, and I know it's because there are a couple of Sixers cliches, like Daryl Morey's comfortable being uncomfortable, and Embiid doesn't do anything by accident. And I've said these things too, right? So like, I don't want to verge into cliche, but that's also true. Like, Embiid knows what he's doing. Now it could just be like he's been pushing this troll thing, so maybe he just like wants to stir things up, or he finds it funny, like, oh, I'm going to see this and watch what Twitter says, and maybe he doesn't mean anything by it. But I mean, there were the comments, what is it? Yeah, if I win a title here or somewhere else, like, it just, their stuff's adding up. And also, like, we don't have to do armchair psychology. The team looks like it could be in big trouble. We'll see what happens. Like, things look like it could be going poorly. He's no dummy. He knows that. He's going to want to win a title. Yeah, for sure. I'd be surprised. Well, a couple things. I don't think we're seeing him asking out for a trade in the next few weeks, right? That's one. I'm interested this year to see how Sixers fans maybe being a little frustrated with him after his Game 7 no-show last year. That's something I'm interested to see, because he can be a little sensitive to that stuff. I'm interested to see how that. I'm just interested to see what that does to the whole, to his love and desire to be in Philly. That to me is something like worth. Maybe it could be nothing, right? It could be fine, but that to me is something worth paying attention to. The other part no one ever talks about with this is like Embiid. Even if he did demand the trade tomorrow, we'll bring up the Daryl Morey cliches. Like, Morey's not trading it, right? Like, Morey's not there. No, that's the part people forget. Like,
you stole my next question, but yeah,
I mean, when I say not trading, I don't think Daryl Morey is like, okay, I'll trade Joel Embiid. He wants to be known as the guy who trades Joel. No, that's not his goal here. So obviously, if he had to and value was there or whatever, but like, yeah, it's not like if Joel Embiid walked in tomorrow and said, Daryl, I demand the trade. Daryl Morey is saying, cool, we'll have you traded in 2 weeks. Like, that's just not happening.
Like, again, going big picture for a second, like, we have a long litany of players asking for trades now. It's become the thing that you do in the NBA when it is replaced free agency. And like, there's one example that has happened now twice, and maybe will happen a third time with the guy we just talked about for 20 minutes, James Harden, of like, this is what can happen if you do not honor the request. The player will go and I don't know how you want to phrase what James Harden does when he no longer wants to be someplace, but it's not what you want as a franchise. And like, we haven't had, okay, actually, no, I stand corrected. Jimmy Butler went and turned the Minnesota Timberwolves organization kind of upside down.
Yeah.
So that was a thing. But like, I don't know. And then we had Durant, who was like, he has to be traded. They didn't trade him. And he went out and played hard. He played really well. And like, but then eventually they relent. Like, all these organizations eventually relent. But do they need to? Like, if you figure if there's going to be any GM who's just going to be like, no, I'm going to count on the fact that Joel Embiid cares about wanting to play basketball well and wanting to look his best, and I'm just going to keep him until it makes sense for me to no longer keep him. Like I guess so. Similar question to the Harden thing. How do you think that would end if it got to a point where I know we're going so many steps ahead?
We saw Ben Simmons, right? It's not completely analogous to everything, but like Morey, that was probably I guess you could say the Nets with Durant, but it seemed like they were also working together for a while. You know, they clearly had some sort of understanding too, right? That like, we'll come back to it. And if you really want to, you know, if we, the right deal, which is the part that we get to this, like Harden, why just strategically the way he's gone about this is so dumb. I don't know. Like, he just not understanding how these landscapes work. Like, if you want to trade, there's ways to go about it, right? And you kind of create a marketplace and you work with a team. Like, there's a way to do it, not just try to nuke a place and demand one team that doesn't have cap space. So if Embiid, if we were talking about Embiid, like, I don't think Morey, that's just not something, he's just not in the place to do it. Now there's all the, the reporting, or we all learned together about the collective bargaining agreement, then the clause in there that I guess was always there, but so I'm saying Zach Lowe reported it, even though it was always there, but we never knew it existed, right? It's basically, do you agree with my assessment there? Like, that seems to be something that no one ever knew was there, but they're saying it was always there.
I never heard about it when it was, apparently it's been there since 2017, right?
Right. So like, who knew? But now we all know, right? So, and that's something that, and by the fact that we all know that, that's like something that the public that people want the public to know, right? Like, this is out there for reasons, right? Like, this is something that we all know because it's a weapon, right? And clearly teams in the league are willing and ready and interested in using it, right? So kind of full circle. I don't see Morey, I won't say not caving, like, to him it'd be a value. It's all value propositions. Like, it's almost the disgruntled player. Am I better off with him or whatever package I get, right? Like, which one gets me closer to my goal? And if the goal is winning a title, it's probably the disgruntled player. If for some reason the team came and offered proper value that he thought made the team better, like, Daryl Morey's not opposed to trading James Harden. He's just opposed to trading him for Norman Powell and a second round pick, right? Like, those are two different things.
So I guess the associated question, and this is something I've been wondering since Harden made his comments, are we sure that Daryl Morey is going to be the one to continue to make all of these decisions?
I know that I'd be stuck. I have no one, I haven't talked to anyone about this, but I would be stunned if Josh Harris and the Sixers chose James Harden on whatever over Daryl Morey. I'd be completely stunned. You don't know. I'd be stunned. It's like, again, random, but like, I think it matters too. Josh Harris also just spent a ton of money to go buy a football team that he's going to be. You don't spend $6 million to buy an NFL team if you don't plan on being involved with. And I think they probably like having their current, Daryl Morey is someone they trust, and Tad Brown's the president. As someone like, not that Josh Harris is an absentee or not involved, he's very much involved in all that stuff, but I don't think this will be the time to bring in a new GM. And I think they like having those guys in there, right? It's guys they trust.
Well, speaking of ownership, I remember when I first, floated my fantasy about Embiid someday ending up on the Knicks to you. I forget what your response exactly was, but it involved the fact that ownership, like, they're not about to let this guy, like, how involved do you think they would get if Embiid? Or
for sure.
Yeah, how does he go to? He probably just goes to them, right? And it's like, I think so. The Sixers, I think, are a team that, like, it's ownership and basketball, like, they're very much in constant communication in what they would describe as a healthy way, right? Not just like understanding.
Obviously the Michael Rubin thing, which he's not there anymore. I don't know. Like, I once asked him, and he didn't give me a good answer. I once asked him, let's say, I asked him, I think I can say whatever. I think this was on the record. I have no idea. Whatever. Who cares? I once asked him, I had some like, let's say Joel Embiid ended up a Knick. Like, how would your allegiance be? And I think he was saying he was unsure, right? But I want to be very clear. That wasn't me. That wasn't, because I guess I'm not sure I should be sharing whatever. But it wasn't like saying, "Oh, I would work with the Knicks" or anything like that.
No.
As a fan, like, kind of the idea being, are you more a Sixers fan, or is it more about the guys who are on the Sixers, right?
Okay.
But then I bring that up. Like, Michael Rubin's no longer in Philly, no longer part of the Sixers ownership. That was obviously Joel Embiid's strongest connection there. But we also know.
Do you think that matters? The fact that
So I'm pleading the fifth. I'm saying I don't know.
Okay.
Like, I don't know. Yeah, I genuinely do not know. That's a better way. Okay. I don't know how that works. How involved. I mean, Rubin goes to a lot of Philly games, Sixers games still, and he was very involved and do like charity events in the arena. Like, he's still basically there. Just not an official owner because he couldn't be because of all his. He's making all the money in the world and involved in everything. It doesn't work being with an NBA owner. Yeah. So it doesn't matter. I want to say no. I don't think it matters, but I genuinely don't know. Right.
Okay. I mean, look, we're sorry if you wanted to go through like trade packages. No, I'm not about to do that. Like, we know how this is going to go if he asks out, and the Knicks will throw everything, and then something will happen or something won't happen. I guess
do you find do you find Knicks fans, like, are Knicks fans doing a thing where, like, I wouldn't trade Emmanuel quickly? Yeah. Like, like I'm holding it like, you can't let him go for an NBA. Is that happening already?
I don't care. That's my answer. That's my version of I plead the fifth. No, like, he's the MVP. I think I don't know exactly how many more years he has at this level, but he's got a few more years. Like, look, I agree with you. As you said, he's not asking, nothing's going to happen before next season. We know that. I mean, never say never, but like, so, you're talking a year from now, but like, I've always believed that this is a guy that one day will put a team on his back and win a championship. And for that reason, like go get the guy, and here's what's going to happen. You're going to have Joel Embiid and you're going to have Jalen Brunson, and you figure out the rest later,
I mean, I'm with you. Yeah, if the opportunity was there, I'm with you. And I'm my way now. We're not can't give up Deuce McBride in a package for free and stuff like that. And I'm making fun of Knicks fans. I grew up a Knicks fan, and my family and friends are all Knicks fans, so I feel like I'm allowed to. But yeah.
Well, speaking of the Knicks, we'll spend a minute on the Knicks, because you've written about them a lot also over the last few years. You've cheated on your primary boo over there. How do you think it's gone? Because I feel like you have a good feel for the Leon Rose regime, let's call it. I'll ask it this way. I'm 3.5 years into Leon Rose. I feel pretty good as a fan. Do you think that's silly, or do you think I'm okay to feel pretty good?
I have so much trouble processing, no pun intended, or figuring out how to process the Leon Rose regime, because although the end, there is no question that it has been a success. To me, you can't say otherwise, right? They've made the playoffs twice. They won a playoff series. They have some stability. They have some young guys. I think Jalen Brunson, right? That's like the biggest one. Like, Jalen Brunson is the guy, right? And I was talking about it. So, like, so what is it? Is it Ewing, Carmelo, Jalen Brunson? Like, you would have, like, is that like the list here of, like, if we're going dots on a board, right? Like, in terms of right? Like,
people are going to get mad at me for saying this. I feel bad, like, erasing KP from history, because there was a hot minute there where that guy was the savior. But it was a hot minute, Jalen Brunson's been a season, but it's been quite a season. So
yeah. And I mention him, and it's almost different than Carmelo. He's an amazing guy too, by all accounts.
Seems like it.
You're seeing with the Team USA stuff, where like, that's to me a good example, where it's not just like Knicks PR or whatever, however that exists. But not just Knicks fans saying how awesome he is, or stories he put out. Like, you seeing, like, Steve Kerr doesn't have to go out of his way to compliment Jalen Brunson, right? There's no, like, that's not something he has to do. Jalen Brunson could play 12 minutes a game. Steve Kerr could never talk about him, and no one would notice, right? Like, it's obvious that there's something there, and bringing that guy in, I don't know, probably the best contract in the NBA. Maybe I'm missing some, but you went through them, right? Like,
I never know how to answer that question, because, like, I don't, Nikola Jokic makes whatever he makes.
Right.
He's the best contract in the NBA.
I guess you're right. Right. Fine.
Yeah. But like, yeah, I get what you're saying from like a dollar in relation to the max.
A rare player who's not on a max who would be on a max. That's a better way to put it. Like I bet if you look through like, the league, how many guys aren't on max or max deals where if they re-signed right now, they would be on a max, right? It's probably a pretty short list. So he's the difference, right? He's the difference, right? That he creates sustainability. He's a leader, incredible. Like, and getting him in, you got a ton of credit. Now, like where I struggle with process because that's the results. I've made this joke before. Are we sure? Am I sure that Jalen Brunson was brought in because they saw this and like they knew that this was there's value and all that? No.
Are you implying? Right. Are you implying, sir? Right. That there are other connections.
Right. So like if D'Angelo Russell was Leon Rose's godson, basically, like would he be the guy? Right. That's kind of like the example I give. Right. And so again, process results, but it worked. That would happen so that Leon Rose's. But the son of Leon Rose's original client and who's basically a godson and his agent, so you guys know, everyone knows all the connections, right? That guy happens to be an amazing player who's undervalued and his team let go and also an amazing dude is like incredibly fortuitous, but God bless. So that's why I have trouble because I don't know if the processes to get there, to get to where they've been have always been great. I mean, I wrote a big story about this a few years ago, but you can't argue with the results. So.
Yeah, well, I mean, look, Brunson to me is the thing that made it real.
Yes, for sure.
Because now, like, in my view, he's so good and seems like he loves being here. It doesn't seem like a guy who's going anywhere anytime soon. They're like, okay, you got that guy. And now I'm just basically like, okay, who's the guy that's going to want to be like, you know what? I think I can win a championship with that dude. And then does it work out from there? And, we'll see.
He's also imprinting his person, like the Josh Hart stuff. Like he's imprinting his personality on the team in a way, right? Yeah. Like you said, he legitimizes it. Again, I'll take a shot. Like Julius Randle was not that, even in his on years, right? Even like before we saw the playoffs, right? 2 years ago, whatever that was, the Hawks series. Like it's a different thing. It's a whole different animal. And Julius Randle was not that guy, and Brunson is.
And that's like no knock on Julius Randle. It's like it's not a perfect comparison because he's never even made an all-star team, but like Tobias Harris has put up incredible stats over the years, but like he's Tobias Harris,
Exactly.
I want to be very clear. Anybody listening out there thinks I'm taking a shot at Julius Randle. Julius Randle, I think, is better than Tobias Harris. Although I wonder what would be the best version of the Knicks with Randle or the Knicks with Harris.
I have nothing against personally, but I'll take the shot. I'll take the shot to Julius Randle. Then I'm not a fan of his game. So there you go. So yeah, I think Knicks would actually. I would prefer the other swap, but. Why do you make is that? Are we still defending? Is this a thing? We get overly defensive of Julius Randle?
Oh no! I think
you've done a great job. Yeah, I'm saying you hammer it, but based on effort, which I like. Like you'll show the clips where
I was, where my if you're actively not trying, that's the one thing that like I can't. It's very tough for me at that point.
Yeah.
But no, he had a great year, and we're at this. Here's I don't know what stage of grief this is at, but we're basically I think in the place where it's like, hopefully it was just his ankle, and that's why he shot the bat against Miami and I guess kind of Cleveland also in the playoffs. But we'll see what happens. Just a couple more things before I let you go. Because you are always working and you're always got stuff going on. So I don't know which of these. Let's do the Substack first because I'm a long time Substacker, as you know, and I love it. I can't. They're not paying me to say this, but I think it's a great platform. And now you're on Substack. Your own Substack is the name of your Substack, and I'll give it to you because like you haven't written anything on it yet, but I think it's maybe a place where people can find your stuff moving forward.
So I'll give the background, right? So I was tinkering, right? And all of a sudden I get a message from you saying, congrats on a new Substack. And I was like, thank you. Just shows how nice Macri is, right? You guys, listeners should be aware just to jump on and help me. I'm like, thank you. To be clear, I'm still at Fox Sports. Want to be very clear, right? Not going anywhere, all that stuff. But I was in the midst of like creating a Substack and I didn't know alerts come on. I'm bad at tech, which I'm not going to admit.
Me and you both.
So as you can see, we don't even have a name. Maybe we'll keep the name. Why not?
Your own Substack's a great name.
That works. Basically, I want a place. So, and we'll get this. I'm working on another book, which we can half tease in a little bit. So, I want a place just to kind of get my understanding into talking to other authors and stuff. I think people do well if you kind of bring readers along through the process a little bit of the reporting and the book writing process. I think people like that. They feel like they're part of it. So when the book comes out, they feel more part of it.
I can't think of any time that's maybe, I'm sure it's been done, but like about a topic I care about. I care about sports. I've never seen that done with a sports book.
Yeah. So again, you can't give away stuff. But yeah, so trying to figure out a way to do that. And I'm a fun guy. I have things to write about other than basketball and James Harden and trade negotiations. So now I want a place to just maybe put on some more, work some different writing muscles. So I made the Substack. I had no plans of talking about it or sharing it yet until I had something going. And this guy right here outs me, and now we're promoting it. So yes, this is for, I guess, Knicks Film School. You guys, I'm not charging anything ever for it, but you can be the first and sign on, and maybe you'll get a note from me within next 9 months. Who knows, right? We'll see. Hopefully it works. But yes, that's the deal. If that background makes sense.
Well, I'm excited for that. And the best thing about Substack is you could just subscribe, and then if you write something, you'll get something in your inbox. So again, I know a little bit about what you're working on. I don't know how much you could say, but you mentioned you are working on another book. I will just say it's about a topic that I think has been underreported on, which is why I'm fascinated to see what you do. But I'll give it over to you and
sure,
whatever you want to say.
So a current NBA team with some big names, I got to figure out what I could share. I know this being, by the way, don't get angry at me for the vague stuff. Get angry at Macri because he's the one, he's throwing this out there, bringing me on. Just, I didn't say have me on to let me be vague about stuff, just to be very clear. No,
it's my fault.
I appreciate it. First of all, I think for the many of you who subscribe to, or many of your listeners who subscribe to a Publishers Marketplace, I believe it's already up there, just so you know. But it also costs like $10 to get on there. So if anyone is really sleuthing, but yeah, it's a current NBA team. I wish I could share. I don't really know. I don't know that I can't yet. I don't know that I can. So I'm going to hold off. But yeah, I think.
Well, let me ask you this about it.
Yeah,
because you're at the beginning. You're at the beginning of the process of writing. Again, no pun intended. Of writing the book. At this stage, just to get a little bit behind the scenes for you,
mm-hmm.
you as a writer, is it excitement? Is it nerves? Is it just like grunt work early on? Like
I'm looking at a stack of books that I feel like I won't share. But yeah, it's excitement. It's yes, all of it, right? It's like the amount of stuff I've spent the last 2 weeks listening and transcribing like 40 different podcasts, right? It's actually one of the cool things today is that I wouldn't do this obviously, but like you probably write a book if you just like go through, like without the original reporting, if you just like listen to every podcast and just like go through all the clips and stuff, and like you were the person to just synthesize everything together in a coherent narrative. You could probably write a book that people would find interesting because there's so much out there, right? And all these, everyone's got a YouTube show. Like I'm finding, I'll Google person X interview and I find a random 90-minute sit down they did with like some rap station in Nashville, right? And I'm transcribing that. So, which is awesome, but it's a ton of work. But I enjoy that.
I'm sure it's a ton of work, but does that, because it obviously could make your job easier to look at it one way, but looking at it another way, couldn't it make your job harder because uncovering new information is that much more?
For sure. That's the part like that. I get anxiety over that. Like I hope I get enough new information, right? So
okay.
I have here people, if they're interested in nerdy stuff, like I note, like I'll transcribe and I'll take out notes and like ideally I'll find a thread or something. Ooh, that's interesting. Let me see. Like I don't think that's been unpacked fully. Let me like use that as a question to take to interviews, right? And see what comes from those, right? I'll do that a lot. If I see themes emerging for certain guys, I can kind of maybe you don't unearth the macro, but you can unearth the micro, if that makes sense. And kind of further illuminate like what actually happened, right? So a certain trade or whatever. But it's definitely harder, especially, I do these modern day books. Something nice about if you were doing one, from the past where you can kind of do a little more rehashing. It's not as current and people forgot things. And I'm not going to say it's easier. It's a different job, right? It's not, you want to unearth new things too, but it's also just telling the complete story and kind of reminding people that, hey, this is what this is like. This is what happened. Whereas me, it's finding new stuff. Some reviews, and the Sixers book was well reviewed, which I feel comfortable saying, and we did well. But there are some reviews. Thank you. But there are some reviews where, like, if you're a diehard Sixers process fan, you won't learn a ton new. And I don't fully agree, but I also get
hold on, that's horseshit.
Fine, but I get it. Like, I appreciate it. I get it. But I'm saying is I get it. Like, the outline's the same, right? Like the Sixers book, you probably could have guessed the chapter outline. Does that make sense?
Fine. That's fair.
Like, there's some truth to that, in a way. Like, you're not, it's not like an event. There are very few events. It's hard to find brand new events. Maybe that's a good way to put it, right? You kind of illuminate and add detail and layers to those things we know about that happened already.
Yeah, but like, I don't know if this is a bridge too far, but like,
good.
Oppenheimer is one of the most popular movies in the country over the last month. Like, we everybody knows how that story ended, and yet you still go see the movie because
I would agree. I think to be all right early. Yeah, I think you can do conflict and characters and build things up and show. Yeah, I think I agree, and I think most readers agree too. So, one way of saying so. The book, I think if you're a fan of my work and some of the stuff I do, I think you'll like it. Oh yeah, I'm hoping. I guess I haven't written it yet, so it could be a sack of shit and we'll see. But I don't know. But I'm hoping it's not. And I'm trying for it not to be. So I think if you're a fan of my work, you'll the stuff I do. And then you'll see the topic, you kind of get an idea of what I'm going for. Whether we achieve it or not, I guess we'll see, but I hope so.
I won't ask you what NBA team would, if you wrote a book about them, the title would be Sack of Shit. I'd be afraid you'd say the team that I have the podcast. Exactly. Oh man, Yaron Weitzman, you are awesome. I guess just before I let you go, let folks at home know. Well, we talked about the Substack, social media. Plug whatever you want to plug. I don't care.
Sure, Twitter. I had to download Threads. My boss has made me, but no one's on Threads. Are you on Threads? Are you still doing Threads?
I went on Threads because Andrew told me to go on Threads, and I sent out I was about to say a tweet. I sent out I did a thing. I did a message, and I have not been back on since.
Yeah, I deleted my phone recently. Anyway, so I think we're still. I should say Twitter, right? It's X. What do I message on X? I don't know. It's all driving me nuts.
You could find your own on the app formerly known as Twitter.
Yeah, that's probably the best place.
Yeah.
By the way, another reason why Substack, I wanted to just get stuff organized. I don't trust where any of this is going in terms of the social media nonsense. So that's another reason why I wanted to make the Substack, say, get a home for myself. But yeah, you can find me on Twitter, Fox Sports. I think that's pretty much it. The Google machine, whatever works for you.
Anytime you ever put something out, articles, it's a must read. And needless to say, I cannot wait until you get more into the book. And obviously, whenever it eventually comes out, because it's going to be another page turner, and there aren't that many great NBA. I mean, there aren't that many NBA books that come out. Period. So when a good one's coming, it's worth getting excited about. So,
thank you, buddy.
Good luck, my friend.
Thank you.